Hello and welcome to a special YouTube presentation on behalf of Friendly to Seniors and also Our Towns, Our City Institute with Tom Price. Tom is with us here and we're going to hold what we're sure is going to be a very interesting conversation on a number of topics of importance to the city of Greater Sudbury. I'm John Lindsay. I'm chair of Friendly to Seniors and also involved with the CARP group, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons. Now, we're old folks, Tom. We have to admit that. We've been around for several decades. And why are we really concerned? Because a lot of the things that are happening in Sudbury now are going to be occurring over a series of decades. And we have to admit it, and we hate to admit it, but we're not going to be around. But we're concerned about the future of Sudbury, and especially dealing with an issue that is paramount in the minds of many, and that's the KED, known as the Kingsway Entertainment District, or it's quoted today in the Sudbury Star because we're reporting almost on the eve of construction or the beginning of construction on the KED. In the Sudbury Star, it's referred to as the Kingsway Environmental District by a group that are opposed to this development. But from our standpoint, we're looking really into the future. And the Institute has been very much concerned, Tom, over, well, the past, I guess we're looking at really probably 6 to 8 years of involvement in civic politics, what's going on in the city, and why is the Institute really concerned?
Well, a couple of things, John. First of all, we're not old. We're just older and
Thank you.
and presumably wiser. Okay. We've been there, we've seen things, we know what happens as consequence of some of the actions that take place. Knowing what those consequences are, we have a duty to try to protect our future generations from those consequences. It's just doing due diligence as citizens of our country. Nothing more, nothing less. When we see things happen that we know the consequences are not going to be good, we have a responsibility to make people aware and to try to make the change to those actions such that the consequences will be good.
So in the indigenous culture, the elders are really respected and they're turned to in many cases for wisdom and to look at situations and to offer advice and various considerations. We know with our Friendly to Seniors group and the CARP group, we've done surveys and we represent not all seniors, of course, and not all citizens, but a significant number because Sudbury is an aged community for a number of reasons. Young people have left, of course, and of course, all of us who are at a more, as you say, advanced age and with more wisdom do feel a responsibility. But the term ageism also comes into here because sometimes it appears that we don't have that respect or consideration. Do you feel that way?
Not entirely. I deal with a lot of young people, and I'm starting in their teens, through their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I deal with a cross-cut of all ages. I don't see the disrespect that I experience and see from certain quarters of the community. Generally speaking, the community as a whole are respectful. They do ask for advice. They do take the advice. However, we have a certain segment of our population that doesn't believe that that advice is good, that doesn't think they need to take that advice, and their egotism is so great that they will not seek it either. So, no, I don't think we've lost respect. I don't think the younger people respect us any less. I know when the youngsters in our family, the grandchildren, come over, they certainly respect their grandmother's pie making ability. They respect my mechanical aptitude to help them fix their vehicles. So the respect is there. It's just that it's not there in areas of our community, running our community where it should be. So we've earned it. And
You haven't exactly stated specifically, but are you perhaps referring to our current city council that seems to have, in the minds of many, sort of run off the rails? And we have been looking at what we call sustainability and maintaining our community going forward. There's been those who have suggested that growth is imminent, that we have to plan for a future of much more population and greater employment opportunities. But according to reputable sources, this does not seem to be something that's going to materialize. But nevertheless, let's get back to the KED. Now, just this past week, the Integrity Commissioner has asked the city, and it has been reaffirmed that there is no build commitment for the Kingsway Entertainment District. No commitment on the part of a hotel or the casino to build on this particular property. And this was drawn out by Councillor Montpellier, who asked city officials, and after considerable debate back and forth, it was admitted that that is indeed the case. And the Integrity Commissioner confirmed that just this past week. So we have a situation now. Now, you've been involved in project development, not only here in Sudbury, past employment with our mining giants, but also around the world. When it comes to projects, what is a basic requirement before moving ahead with a project of this magnitude? We're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
well, generally speaking, there's two major factors. First of all, and probably the most dominant factor, and I know people don't practice it today, but is trending. And if you follow trending, and what wisdom age brings us says that you can predict the future by trends in the past. Okay. So when you see the trends in the past, for example, on other arenas, on other event centers, what they have cost their communities, whether they've been successful or not, you can pretty well predict where ours is going to be. If you look at the trends of the population distribution, called demographics, and see where that trend is taking us, you can pretty well predict where that's going to be. So based on those predictions, you want to have some level of assurance that what is being spoken of and what is being said is actually there. And the best way to do that is you put in your contracts, and you let contracts before you spend money that you know will have to deliver. If they can't, and they're not prepared to guarantee the delivery of what they're talking about, then you better back off on how much money you commit to it. And every company does this. If you can't have any assurance of the market being robust and expanding, are you going to expand your production capacity? Absolutely not. If you have no market for your vegetables as a farmer, if people have been moving away and you can no longer transport them to the distant markets, are you going to plant more crops next year? Absolutely not. You have no assurance of your future. The trend has been going the opposite direction. The trend on the KED and similar facilities has been all the opposite of what we've been told by our council and our project management team with the city. We now know that we have been misled, grossly misled. Have they lied? You can say no because they haven't told a lie, but there's such a thing in legal circles called a lie by omission. By not telling you the truth, you're omitting telling the truth, and that in itself constitutes a lie. If you know that telling the truth is going to change materially what you have proposed to do, and you leave that out, then yes, that is in fact a legal lie. So yeah, we've been lied to now for 3.5 years by our council, by our city staff. And it took the integrity and the tenacity of Councillor Montpellier to keep hammering at it until he finally got a true statement. That true statement is a betrayal of every voter in this city. Whether you're pro-KED or against KED, it's a betrayal of every voter in the city. You would never, in private industry, take that to the bank and start building on what has just happened.
Mhm. Speaking of going to the bank, the city has borrowed on our behalf, us the taxpayers, a considerable amount of money. There's some question is actually that borrowing exercise. So we have this amount of money, and we're really questioning whether it's enough money to even realize what has been anticipated, even with respect to the arena. And we know that currently the cost of materials has gone up, the cost of labor. The original estimate of the arena was 60 million, went to 80, went to 100, went to 114. Do we have enough money? Is it possible that costs could go even higher? You've been involved in many projects. What is the scenario here possible?
Well, the scenario is that, no, we don't have enough money. They borrowed 90 million for the Arena Event Center. The latest predictions by the engaged consultant, PricewaterhouseCoopers, said it would be 114 million. So if they borrow 90, then that's $24 million that's got to come out of taxpayer pockets, in addition to the money they borrowed, which also comes out of our pockets. Where are they going to get the extra 24 million? Are they just going to hide it in other accounts? Are we going to pay for it on our borrowing more from our infrastructure, so we won't get maintenance on our infrastructure even worse than what it has been? They haven't answered that question. Like, where does the extra $24 million come from? And it's the same with the Junction. That started off at, I think it was 47 million. It's now up to 115 million. Where's the extra money for that going to come from?
Very good question. We know with respect to the Junction, we're talking about the Junction East, which would be the new library and art gallery. And we know in the surveys that we've done with the CARP group and Friendly to Seniors that very much concern and opposition to a new library and an art gallery. With respect to the arena, about 75% were in favor of either something new downtown or a renovated arena downtown, only 25%. Now this goes back a couple of years. We're looking at something on the Kingsway and the various promised amenities for the Kingsway location. Now, the petition that's coming forward possibly before council this coming week says that they have about 3,000 signatures that of people who are concerned or who are definitely against the KED, who are more in favor of the downtown location. The question is, will this petition even reach the floor of council? And I guess the question I'm asking you now is that there's a real intent to get shovels in the ground, as they say, and to start road work on this particular piece of property. Some of it is owned by the city, but the vast majority is still owned by the developer. But this will be an enhancement to that particular piece of property that's being paid for largely by the city. Do you see some concerns in this?
Absolutely. If we go ahead and proceed with that development, there is nothing that binds anybody else to doing anything. We've been told that the KED itself is dependent on property taxes from the casino and the hotel to help pay for it. So if the hotel and casino don't go ahead, are we going to go ahead with the KED? And if we're not, then taxpayers have just funded the development costs for the industrial park for the developer. That's a nice deal. In fact, I would be tempted if I was the developer that as soon as site preparation is complete, I would say, oh no, I haven't been able to engage a hotel and casino isn't going to come. So I'm sorry, I can't go any further. He's already got the site developed for industrial purposes.
And
No.
also the other aspect, of course, is the fact that this development is taking place about 7 or 8 kilometers outside of the downtown. So there's been concerns raised with respect to traffic. There's been concerns raised with respect to the environment, building this development on what's called the recharge area for Lake Ramsey, which is drinking water for about 50,000 people. These are some concerns that seem to have been overlooked. Is there any reason why this is the case? Why wouldn't the city look at some of these concerns in a serious manner?
Well, I would argue that they haven't been overlooked. They've been deliberately stonewalled. The city knows very well the consequences environmentally of what is being done. They refuse to talk about it. They refuse to acknowledge it. That is stonewalling. That isn't being overlooked. They cannot overlook their own reports. Their own reports state what you've just said, that the source water protection is an issue. So they didn't overlook that. They've stonewalled and just kept it in the background, and they're not going to address it. That is dishonest. They know the environmental impact with carbon dioxide emissions. So that's not overlooking it. That is stonewalling and deliberately not addressing it. So this, it's always, people want to be nice and friendly and nice. We'll negotiate and we'll do this. Well, no, the time for negotiation is over. These people have been deliberately misleading the public. No question about it.
Yeah. In that regard, now you've written and been quoted in the media with respect to the responsibility of elected representatives and their actual role with respect to city governance. Can you just sort of elaborate on that and where we may see the failings in our present council?
Well, I don't know of any of the responsibilities that are covered in the Municipal Act that a certain portion of council has been honoring. So yes, I could detail each one of those, but I can tell you, generally, the job description that the Municipal Act dictates should be adhered to has been literally flaunted. They've even flaunted their own policies. They have a strategic pillars for the city. In selecting the KED site, they never addressed any of those strategic pillars. They brought in a climate change emergency. They brought in a net zero emissions policy. Neither of those have been addressed. They have a source water protection plan that has not been addressed. So they haven't done their job on any of this. Their job is to be a board of directors. They're to ensure that the corporation does the things it's committed to do. This council has not done that. Now, all councillors? No. A select group of councillors. However, they hold a majority in council.
It's this board of directors, in a sense. So I get sort of confused between the political aspect and this responsibility as a board of directors. Let's say sort of a corporation. As a matter of fact, the city is actually a corporation.
Absolutely.
And we have the staff and we have the board of directors. Now, they do have a fiduciary responsibility as well too to the taxpayers, those of us who supply the money to keep things going.
Absolutely. That's stipulated right in the Municipal Act. They have to look after the finances on behalf of the people. They've not been doing that. Like they're entering into a $115 million KED project. There's only $90 million accessed to pay for that $115 million. Is there fiduciary responsibility in moving ahead on that without the financing in place? None whatsoever.
Now there's the question. I was going to say there's a question of that. Actually, the money that was borrowed. I certainly not too clear on this, but with respect to those who are viewing, it's just to me it sounds like an individual who might go out to try to get a first mortgage for the house and they can't get it, so they go to a second mortgage and have to pay more money or there's other particular conditions. Is that a rough comparison analogy to what happened with the city borrowing money for these efforts?
Oh, no, it's much more dire than that. It's much more serious than that. They approached financial institutions to borrow the money. Didn't matter whether it was first or second mortgage. They were turned down. None of the financial institutions would lend them the money for these projects. Instead, they went to the equivalent of a payday loan company. They took out a bullet debenture, and it is literally equivalent to a payday loan. Okay. You take a look at the repayment schedules and everything else. The only difference is this payday loan is for 205 million. Most payday loans are for $1,000 or less. But the city has got unlimited taxpayer pockets. So they were able to get a payday loan for 205 million, and payday is in 2050.
And we're going to be paying interest all during this particular period of time. Plus, we have to pay back the capital at the end of it. Is that correct?
We have to pay down or pay interest every year on the total capital, the total loan. We pay the 2.416% interest on the total loan every year for 30 years. In addition to that, every year we have to put away into a special account 1/30th of the capital. So we're paying back 1/30th of the capital plus the interest on the full amount every year. So does that sound like a payday loan? Yeah, it sure does.
Well, most of us, as older folks who, we're pretty much debt adverse,
Yep.
largely because maybe our forebears went through a depression and we were taught, that debt was bad. Debt was a bad four-letter word, but we still borrowed money for our homes because we lived in them. But we're borrowing money, it would appear, that is a little bit beyond what we actually required, and maybe for the wrong purpose.
Well, there's big differences between a home and what's happening here. A home, when you take out a mortgage for a home, you're probably going to be paying very close to what it would cost you to rent from someone else. When you rent from someone else, you're not building any equity. But when you take out a mortgage and buy a home, you're building equity. You're building a savings account. That is not what's happening here. There is no savings account with this type of loan. The only savings account is to put away enough money to pay back the total capital in 2050.
Okay, so what should we be doing now with this money? Let's say it's decided that the KED maybe is a bad idea. We maybe should renovate the downtown arena or whatever, and forget about a new library at the present time or an art gallery. But we have this money. I don't think we can give it back. If we can't give it back, what's the best use for it?
Well, I would argue that the entire 205 million, now some of that's already gone to the 4-laning going out to Chelmsford between Isilda and Chelmsford. And that's a good application of the money. That road will be there for the 30 years and beyond. So that's not a bad application. However, to put money into the KED, basically an arena and an art gallery and a library, when we have our public assets in such bad shape, is irresponsible. The money should be put into bringing up those assets to a good condition. Now, I've made the point many, many times about our roads being the corridors of commerce. If anybody doesn't believe that, take a look at what's happening in the US right now and what they're doing to their roads and their infrastructure to bring it up to where they have an economic future. Take a look at what's happening to the shipment of goods, where roads and the trucking cannot get enough drivers to keep the commerce moving. Take a look at what just happened in Vancouver and southern British Columbia. There are no roads right now. The roads have been washed out. Guess what's happened to the economy there? It's at a dead standstill. How are people even getting the basic supplies? So as roads of commerce, we should be protecting all of our roads, our railroads and our roads. And if you live on the port, our seafaring roads as well. So yeah, take the 90 million and take the 68 million for the art gallery and the library. That 158 million doesn't even come close to the 230 million that we're now told they're going to cost. So cancel them, put the money to work on our corridors of commerce. And if we're necessary, take a bit of money here and there and fix up our existing assets, our arenas, our fire stations, whatever's needed, but fix that. And that
So,
can be done.
yeah.
All it takes is an order in council.
So what you're saying is we should be looking at investments, putting money where you're going to get possible return. And
Yes.
a possible return on the KED and the Junction East, the library and the art gallery are not really what you would consider assets that are going to offer a return on the investment. Is that correct?
The only returns on the KED, the art gallery, and the library are negative, highly negative.
Yeah, they're negative. Why? Because of the maintenance required, or
How do you make money on a library?
uh,
How do you make money on an art gallery? How do you make money on an arena event center? Because no one else in North America has been able to. So how do we propose to do it? And I've heard no plan on how we propose to make this a return on investment. So let's put it where there is a return. Let's fix our roads, let's fix our water systems, our buildings, and then we have good assets going forward.
we're almost out of our time because we only wanted to spend about 30 minutes because that's all the time we have on our Zoom license, to be honest, but because we're economical. But,
Yes.
you know, if you can't say it in 30 minutes, I guess you can't say it. But oftentimes when we listen to the council meetings, it goes on and on for hours and hours, sometimes spending great amounts of time on very small items and brushing over some of the large items with a high dollar value. Is there something wrong here?
Yes, there is. And for example, I can give you one gross example, okay? The very individuals who were against having payday loans in the downtown for workers who desperately needed that bridging of cash absolutely approved a payday loan for $205 million for every citizen in this city. Is there conflict there? Yes. They either don't know what the heck they're doing, or they're deliberately ignoring that and going ahead and inviting us anyway. So now, the latest I've heard, and I heard this yesterday from one of the individuals, is that he's going to bring a motion forward to get another third-party consultant to determine whether council and the mayor are getting paid fairly or need pay increases. So we're going to use taxpayer money to buy a report that says, oh, we need more money. We need to be paid more money. That's a conflict right in itself. How can you use taxpayer money, the owner's money, to produce a report that says, hey, Mr. Owner, you owe us more money? Of course, the report's going to come back that way.
It's almost like the bot report that they had from PricewaterhouseCoopers with respect to
identical.
Well, we just run out of time. We would suggest that if anyone's interested, we have a website. It's friendlysudbury.ca with much more information. That's www.friendlysudbury.ca. And I want to thank you, Tom, of our City, Our Towns Institute. And we expect more comments from you. And I guess the best thing we can say is those people who are viewing or concerned is to get in touch with their counselor and to be, what's the word, more responsible?
Start asking the hard questions.
Great. Well, we hope that those of you who have been viewing have received some answers to some of your questions and the concerns that we've had over a considerable number of years now. And we're going to continue to do so. Thank you very much, Mr. Price. It's been nice having you here with us again. And
thank you for the opportunity.
We'll do this again soon. Thanks again.
Okay.
Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.